This is the MIAA Weekly.
Welcome to MIAA Weekly. We're back. I am Matt Witwicky. I'm joined by my guy, Jon Dykstra. Jon, how have you been?
Not too bad, Whit. I'd say we're back and better than ever, but we'll see how this goes and let the people decide that.
Well, how is not that our summer's totally over yet, but my kids think that that's the case, Jon, because they're going to be going back to school on Thursday. So for them it is. But how has your summer been? What does Jon Dykstra do in the summer?
I feel like it's about over at this point because I've been writing season previews for about the last month, as every sports editor in the country has been doing, I'm sure. Started off with the MIAA. Now we've gone into the other sports at Northwest, and next week is high school previews. So we'll just previewing everything there is to preview right now.
Yeah, I bet it's probably a mad dash for you all of a sudden now, right?
That's how August goes. It's like most people don't think you have anything going until the games start, but preview season's more of a headache usually than the actual games are.
Well, let me ask you, buddy. You leading up into this point in the year, you normally will go ahead and you do some work. You do a preview and so forth. You do a ton of work going into that, and we're going to go ahead and give everybody a little bit of a shot of kind of what you do with that. Here's kind of the opening page that you have, and this is an 8-page that you go ahead and you do.
MIAA football preview. So
yeah,
we dig in with a couple columns in there, a pick 'em, which I'm proud to say we landed the big fish and got Mr. Matt Witwicky doing the pick 'em this year.
You needed another person to fill out the graphic, didn't you?
Well, the graphic keeps getting longer every year. It's like people like beating me in the pick 'em or something.
Well, I'm only going to leave it up there for so long so they don't have all the answers to the test.
Exactly. We'll go through that next week. My picks might change.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that goes. But so how can Jon, you do an outstanding job with this. This is extremely in-depth. There's nothing like this out there, in terms of like a conference preview that I'm seeing by a local writer like you're doing. How do they get their hands on something like this?
If you're local and in Northwest Missouri somehow, subscription to the Maryville Forum is $40 for a year. We're a weekly paper, so it's usually 8 pages of sports every week. So this isn't that much different than a normal week.
Gotcha.
And this one's just dedicated to the MIAA. But and if you're out of town, or in town, you prefer just online, it's $29 for a year to have online only, and you can see the e-edition, you can see everything. You just don't get the paper copy. So I'd like to think $30 a year is worth what I put into it. So so I should. For this section alone, I certainly put $30 of writing into it. So
this is fantastic, and we're lucky to have you here, kind of as our contributor, Jon. In the off season, we had a few things kind of transpire in D2, and we would be kind of remiss if we didn't go over a little bit of this. We kind of kicked the tires on this a little bit last night on our national show, but just to make sure our MIAA audience is fully aware of kind of what's happening here. D2 is going to go to an automatic qualifier for conference champions. With the Conference Carolinas, we're now up to 16 football conferences in Division II. So that'll make up half the field, because the field in the playoffs has now been moved up from 28 to 32 as well amongst those changes. Jon, what were your thoughts about this one way or the other? And how do you think it impacts the MIAA?
That first bullet point, I don't think has much effect on Super Region 4, which the MIAA is in now. Anybody who wins one of those conferences, in my opinion, is going to be in the playoffs. I know there was some talk of Pitt State's tough schedule. Well, what if they lose 3 games early and then they can still win the MIAA with like one loss in the MIAA. Maybe that could happen and that could factor in, but I don't think that first bullet point really affects too much in the MIAA.
Sure.
Second one is obviously the big one, going from 7 schools making the playoffs in each super region to 8. That's going to be helpful, and we'll see in a second why it is. But yeah, just getting that 8th team in the playoffs, no more bye for the top seed. Everybody plays that first weekend. I think that's a good change, and I think you agree with me on that. That more the merrier.
Yeah, and I'm also pretty cool with the fact that I like placing value on winning your conference.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any real value associated with winning your conference. We had cases in the recent past where you might win your conference, but that didn't mean anything towards playoff qualification. I mean, it wasn't one of those, what wasn't one of the metrics. And I personally think that there's value to that, and I'm glad to see it in. And I've been a proponent for that for quite some time. And it kind of leads us to, here's the 16 conferences and the new super regions. And for those who, are used to the MIAA being in super region 3 across the top, as we look left to right, they're now in SR4 with the GAC, which is primarily the Arkansas schools, the Hardings, Ouachita Baptist, teams like that. Then you have the Lone Star Conference. You have, kind of a mix of different teams down there through the Texas squads. And then you also have, keep in mind, Central Washington's a part of that. So they're a team that's been in the playoffs the last few years from the Lone Star. The MIAA obviously is going to be there, and then the RMAC. So you've got the Colorado Mines, you've got Colorado, State Pueblo, and you have Western Colorado amongst others. So it's a very broad area. Now with this, with the D2 playoffs, there's always going to be at least one super region that's going to have to be pretty far drawn out because of the landscape of Division II football, if you were to look at it on a map. So in this case here, SR4 becomes the one that's kind of the westernmost. So this one kind of is west and then swings south. Now, how do you feel this directly impacts the MIAA, getting teams in and making a successful run?
Well, geographically, I think it makes sense. The MIAA makes more sense in that group than the NSIC did. It's just a little bit farther south, obviously. But in terms of how I've been telling people this, I think there's a fair amount of celebration amongst the MIAA that, hey, we don't have to go to Michigan anymore to get into the Final Four, because Ferris and Grand Valley have just been knocking out MIAA schools left and right every year.
Yeah.
I think I would caution people, though, and say, I think this makes it tougher to get in the dance, because I think these are 4 really good conferences. And in the past, if you had the GLVC in, they're usually just going to get one team. And maybe that would change with the 8 teams, and that kind of cancels out the difficulty of getting in the dance. But if you're looking at this and you're like, well, we don't have the Michigan schools anymore, we're going to get 3 or 4 teams in, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is 2 bids from each league, and they're going to play it out, and it's going to be a really good field. And I think it becomes the most difficult super region in the country.
Let's hope that when you have the Colorado schools, you have Kansas City area schools, let's say, and then you have Texas teams, maybe we'll have some of those where you don't need to have flights. Now, the Texas part maybe doesn't help that a whole lot. The GAC can obviously travel to the MIAA rather easily, but I'll be curious to see, on the flight side of things, how we see some of those matchups. I think it's not spread out so much, John, that we end up seeing some conference matchups to save on flights. That would be a bad thing.
I'm betting you see a lot of GAC playing Lone Star schools and a lot of MIAA playing RMAC schools, if I had to guess.
And I think that's fairly level. I don't think that's wild one way or the other, to be perfectly frank.
No, because the GAC is right there with the loads. I mean, it's Arkansas and Oklahoma versus Texas. So,
Well,
I mean, Central
Harding has done a great
Washington's
job of raising the profile of the Great American Conference.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah. So tremendously. Nobody else has really had playoff success yet, but when you got Harding, you can't you can't downplay the quality of the conference.
Oh, what Paul Simmons has taken to another level there is really impressive, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Well, let's, John. We talked a little bit. This is kind of some of our pregame stuff about what happened in the off season. Let's go ahead and kind of move a little bit closer now to real time. John, you had a chance to go to Media Day for the MIAA, which was in Emporia, Kansas. How far a drive was that for you and your group?
That's a couple hours for me. I underestimated how much farther it was from Maryville to Emporia than it is to Kansas City. Because I make that trip once every 2 years, basically, is my only reason to go to Emporia for the football game. But they did a tremendous job hosting. I actually, for football media day, I think I prefer it there instead of Kansas City, because they did a tremendous job. Obviously had the facilities to host it, and I think it went fairly smoothly for all involved. I haven't heard too many complaints about anything in terms of how it was run.
Gotcha. Well, let's go ahead and see a little bit of what came out of Media Day. The coaches, and there was a media poll. And if we take a look at the top portion of this release, and by the way, we would be remiss if we didn't thank Brenna, our gal at the MIAA home office, along with Mike Racy and the rest of their crew for how accommodating they are, whether it's the Media Day stuff and whether it's helping us getting more, ready-made information for our show, like what you see right here. Brenna had all this all cooked up for us, and this was fantastic. A massive time save for myself, because Dykstra wasn't doing this. But anyway,
I wasn't doing anything. I'm busy typing high school.
He knows when he's got to show up, and we go. So yeah, but no. So looking at this, the coaches' rankings on the top left portion of our display, and then the media rankings on the far right. Now, some interesting things. Pitt State ends up overall being the one in this. John, you're more of a mathematician than I am. That means that there was some people in the media that didn't have Central Local 1 or 2 by my math.
Well, there are however many 34 or so media votes in there. I'm not sure we have 34 media members in the MIAA, so I'm a little
They
curious.
were counting you twice?
I'm a little curious. Well, if they were counting me twice, they'd have UCO higher. But maybe that's 2 of those 18 first place votes. Yeah, that's interesting to me, because I read it the exact same way. If you have more first place votes than the team in front of you, somebody must have had you way down on the ballot. And I don't know who watched UCO last year and looked at who they're returning and had them that much farther down. To me, that's got to be a history thing. But yeah, that definitely stood out to me when I looked at this poll.
Now, if I'm going to be real frank with you, is that same history thing play in the Northwest being higher ranked by the media than the coaches?
I think it does. Obviously, I'm close to the Northwest program and know a lot of what's going on there, and I was higher on them. But I think, yeah, it certainly does. Although Emporia, if you're comparing them and Emporia's developed that reputation as well recently. Like, they're not outside that top 5 very often. So I think they kind of had that history on their side too, as weird as that sounds, because of the history that Northwest has. I think Emporia has that recent history too. I think maybe I'm overrating the history thing, because I was just going to say Kearney probably gets hurt by it too, but they're higher in the media
Right.
poll than they are in the coaches poll. So it's hard to judge what certain people are looking at in these things. I know I've talked to people that didn't think UCO returns quite as much as they do, which we'll get into in a second. So I was surprised by the order, but I mean, we're going to learn a lot about Pitt real quickly, and it wouldn't shock me if Pitt won the conference this year. I just wouldn't have had them number one, in my personal opinion.
I think it's easy for people to quickly kind of mentally fade UCM a tad because the fact that they're graduating Zach Zambrowski and the storied career that he had just in the few seasons he was there. Now that said, and the coaches had Central Oklahoma first, fairly convincingly, then Pitt State, then Fort Hays State third, and some folks watching this, if you're not, a diehard MIAA person, you're just kind of watching this casually. You may be thinking Fort Hays third ahead of Central, Mo, Emporia, and Northwest. Well, for those who didn't pay close attention to Fort Hays last year, they really came on quite a bit and showed some real promise. And I think that they're one to don't bypass. Now, looking at 4, you have Central Missouri per the coaches. You have Emporia State 5, Northwest is 6. Missouri Western, or Mo West as they're going to be called going forward, 7 officially. Then number 8, Nebraska Kearney, number 9, Washburn, number 10, Missouri Southern. Now, I'm just going to only kind of highlight the coaches for the time being because we're actually going to unveil your 1 through 10 later in the show. Well, we'll kind of take our time as we go ahead and do this because your list is not going to be exactly the same as, frankly, either one of those two. Yours always has a little bit of additional flavor. So we'll kind of break that down as we go.
I like to think it's good flavor, but we'll let the chat decide, I guess.
Well, let's go ahead, and I want to take a quick look at, we went ahead and we looked at what the coaches have. Let's go ahead and pop into what does Jon have for his first place team in this conference?
Drum roll, please.
And the answer to
wasn't very exciting.
It's only so exciting on this show, let's be honest. So,
as you could tell by the way I was talking about them when we first dove in, UCO. They won the conference last year, and in my opinion, they return as much as anybody in the conference does. They have a ton back this year. Adam Dorrell's obviously back for his 4th season, so these are his guys now. At this point, these are the guys he's had this whole time. Jet Huff coming back, Jaden Cottrell. You pretty much, I think you'd have a hard time arguing that coming into the year, that's the best quarterback in the conference and the best running back in the conference on the same team. And Montrell and Lee, the offensive lineman, won Offensive Lineman of the Year last year in the MIAA. So you have the best lineman, the best quarterback, the best running back on the same team. That offense is stacked going into this year.
Yeah, on the other side of the ball, Jack Puckett's the top defender in the conference as well. Now, a lot of our audience is probably wondering about the situation with Coach Dorrell. You had a chance to see him. You guys know each other. You got a chance to see him in media day, and you get a chance. He kind of said, hey, the situation that I went through in the offseason, I was really pleased with kind of how our club handled it and kind of how his support staff there with his coaches did. Isn't that kind of the vibe you got from Coach?
Yeah, obviously an unfortunate situation, and he said the right things in terms of hoping that people learn from it and don't do what he did basically. And he got addressed. He was away from the team for a while and went and had that taken care of. I'm not going to release everything that wrong, but he got that situation and got himself some help there. And I think it's better for it, or at least seem like he feels like he's turned a corner. So hopefully for his sake and that program's sake, that's the case.
Yeah, and if we take a look at UCO, certainly we're going to go ahead and have a week 0 show, 7 days from now, where we talk about the early matchups. But it's kind of hard for us to ignore the fact that they really start with two gangbuster squads. With they're at UTPB, and Permian Basin is a top 30-ish type team. Maybe better than that.
They were 25 in my poll. They snuck in. So
there you go. And so they got to go to their place right away. Then they come back in that pit. So those first 2 weeks right away, really, we're going to know, I think, a lot about them right off the jump.
Yeah, I think so too. And Pitt doesn't want to hear it, but we'll get to them later. But it's different. Last year they played Langston in week 1, and it was kind of the dud on the list of MIAA games or week 0, I should say, for that
Langston
week.
Catching strays just out of nowhere there.
And it wasn't a very good game. They really stepped it up this year. UT Permian Basin, I know not all the MIAA fans keep track nationally, but they're a good program. They made a bowl game last year. They've been in the playoffs before. They're a good program. So I would definitely favor UCO in that matchup, but it's not going to be a cakewalk for sure.
So that was probably, I would say, the most obvious selection. Right
don't
off
tell the other media members, but yeah.
So let's go ahead and dig a little bit further into what you have here, John.
Here it comes.
Your second place team for this year, Fort Hays State Tigers. I'm not sure everybody had that on their bingo card.
Apparently
you know
not.
What? Coach Brown brings back Caleb Heavner, and a quarterback who I thought back half of the year was as good as just about anybody in the conference, can do a little bit of everything. And, you bring back John Johnson, who a really solid linebacker that we've been talking about for years. Tell me a little bit more kind of your thoughts that go behind Fort Hays being the second place team.
Yeah, I just really like how they finished the year. They lost one game in their last 5 that Heavner started. Heavner started the last 6 games of the year. They were 5-1 with a 1-point loss at Pitt State being the only loss there. And they played some good teams in that stretch too. So they were playing their best football at the end of the year. Heavner was playing very well. It's kind of him and Huff as the 2 best quarterbacks in the conference, in my opinion, and not really a debate of anybody too close to that. At least until we start playing games here. And then Chris Brown's defense. Northwest and Rich Wright have had kind of that, you always know they're going to be good defensively. Now Rich Wright's no longer at Northwest. I would say the best defensive head coach in the conference right now is Chris Brown with his Fort Hays State team. And they return a lot of talent on that side of the ball. When you look at the line, getting a guy like Parrish Terry back, he was one of the top linemen in the conference as a freshman and missed all last year injured. He's back. John Johnson, like you mentioned. The secondary isn't quite as prolific as the next team we'll get into, that's for sure. But they've got some guys too. And they also return a running back. I know people are worried because they lost Watts at running back. Travis Dixon split starts with Watts 2 years ago and then missed all last year with injury. He's back. So you have a running back with starting experience. I just really like what this team has this year, and I think they are the safest pick to be in that top 3 in the league, and I would have a hard time seeing them not finish somewhere in that top 3.
There you have it. John Dykstra's second place team in the league.
I believed in Chris's squad last year too, and they let me down early but got going late. So let's put the full season together now, boys.
Well, and before we go ahead and look at your next team, they also have a real interesting first few weeks. They host Angelo State again. Then they will be making a trip to CSU Pueblo. So you take a look at those first 2 games. That's real tough right out of the gate. 1-2 right there.
That's
So
the favorites in the Lone Star and the favorites in the RMAC or the co-favorites. So
yeah,
you might be mad about how high I ranked them, some fan bases out here, but you ought to be rooting for them the first 2 weeks because those are big games for the MIAA when it comes playoff time.
no doubt about it. So, John, moving on to your third place team. Fans from this school are probably clamoring, saying, how come he hasn't said our name just yet?
We're back on the tracks.
Pittsburgh State, the Gorillas. They are your third place squad. And we'll talk about a schedule here in just a moment, but
Yeah.
Coach Tom Anthony stepped in for the program, and I thought did a real solid job a year ago. Now, towards the end of the season, it seemed like they were at a little bit of a crash landing, leaking some oil on the last few weeks of the season with the Central Missouri kind of one-sided loss there in Pittsburgh, and then kind of the same thing for the Harding game. As we transition now into this season, we have a turnover, at quarterback and a few other spots. How do you see Pitt State? I mentioned last night on our national show, I think they're kind of a hard team for me to put a number on as to where I would rank them.
Well, just look at that top individual returners there over on the side. Your quarterback's thrown for 8 yards with no touchdowns and a pick. Your running backs sub 500 yards. Cleo Chandler is a very good football player, but he split time last year, so it'll be a little different this year, or they'll have a completely new guy splitting time with him. So that's a question. Receiving core, they returned quite a bit, lost a very good tight end. But then your leading tackler had 47 tackles on the year. You're replacing all your top 3 tacklers from last year. And a lot of your front 7 production. Now the secondary for Pitt is the best secondary in the country, and I don't think it's particularly close. You have a better gauge of that than me, but returning those guys, Jalen Frusha, Ryan, I butcher his last name, but MIAA fans know him. He's a heck of a return man as well.
Medeiros.
And Jordan Rogers would be my pick for MIAA Defensive Player of the Year preseason. Yep. He's a turnover machine. So that secondary is a strength. It's just everything else has some holes in it, and they need to answer those. And they're Pitt State. They will probably answer them, but they've just got more holes going into this year than the top 3 teams on my list, and that's why I have them down here. And we'll see, because I think you're going to get into it next. But that schedule, it's going to they're either going to show a whole lot or they're going to get showed up those first few weeks.
I think that for us on the Sunday night national show, I think their schedule may be every bit as intriguing as the football team this year.
Oh, yeah.
And what I mean by that is I can't recall a start to a year like they're going to have with at Ferris State, at Central Oklahoma, then they host Grand Valley, and then they host Fort Hays.
And then you're at Emporia.
Right.
Like it's all the top teams in the league.
And those are consecutive weeks without, a break in there. I commend Tom Anthony and their AD and their whole crew for the ambition of the scheduling. But it also becomes a little bit of a careful what you wish for, because all of a sudden you could get yourself where you're a little bit trying to dig out of a hole. Now, the concern that you and I have is not how well this Pitt State team will defend any of those squads that we mentioned.
No.
It's, do they have enough offensive firepower? Because that's the situation that they ran into last year. I felt like in the Harding game, I didn't feel like they could punch back with Harding offensively. And I think they had some of those same troubles with UCM. Field goals instead of touchdowns and your red zone production and things like that. Now, if they can get things cooking this year in that regard, I think Pitt State's a whole different football team, but I think we need to see more evidence of that.
I mean, if you find a quarterback that can put up some yardage, yeah, that changes the whole deal. Suddenly we're talking about a top 5 football team in the country.
Yeah.
It's just I can't pencil in a guy who's thrown for 8 yards as being that dude necessarily, and these transfer portals is too hard to figure out who's got who and what's going on. So that's my concern is definitely offensively. I think that defense is really good. That's Tom Anthony's specialty is that defense, and I think they're going to be really good. But I just want to see that offense, and we're going to get a chance to early and often.
Well, we've got 3 down. Let's go ahead and take a look at your 4th place team. Never a dull moment, John, with doing your unveiling. Were you expecting anything else but this answer? For those watching, John does write for Northwest, but at the same time, I think he's pretty fair with his assessment.
I write for the Maryville Forum. I don't write for. I write about Northwest.
Yeah, same. So as we're looking at this here, I think this is where you would see probably the most up and down with different media polls and so forth if we looked at 10 different ones for the MIAA. Because we've got Central Missouri, we've got Emporia, and we've got Northwest, I think, who most people would have as these next 3 teams in some form or fashion. Tell me what favored you to put Northwest here in this spot.
I thought I would be more consensus with this. I was kind of surprised that I wasn't, because when you look at their returners and who is back, and it's weird because they've got first-year head coach with McMenamin up there. You would think they would have the most turnover of all these teams, but when you look at it, 2,800-yard passer. They have a running back who got hurt beginning of last year, but this is his 3rd year as being a captain, so they have an experienced running back. They have a receiver with 700 yards. The secondary is led by Fredrickson. Power might be the best D lineman in the conference coming into the year. They've got a unanimous first team All-American or first team All-MIAA linebacker in Carter Edwards. They just return a lot, and I don't want to just assume anything because I know it's a homer take, and I'll be honest, I'm closer to them, so I know a little bit about what they have back and what's kind of developed more than I do about other teams. But I mean, they return 4 offensive linemen. They just return a lot at a lot of key positions, and that's why I had them higher. And I think there's some continuity with the defense, which was still the number 1 total defense in the MIAA last year. There's a lot of guys back on it, and Chad Boswick returns to run it even without Rich Wright there. And I have a lot of faith in him as a defensive coordinator. And if McMenamin can get that offense any kind of life, because last year it was such a negative, it put the defense in so many bad positions. If they can get any life, I think they could be like I have here, the 4th best team, and maybe try to climb into that top 3. But maybe I'm wrong on that. But I just like what they have back compared to some of these other teams we'll get into later on.
Now let me push back for a moment.
Okay.
I don't know how excited Bearcat fans are when they think about returning a passing game where 14 picks to 19 scores, and really not much of a running game. So when we take a look at that, what do you think is going to? I mean, you feel that Coach Mack is going to be? Do you think this team is going to be a little more pass oriented, or do you think that they're going to be really balanced? What are your initial thoughts? If you're going to sniff things out here, because we're going to find out here in about 10 days anyway.
It doesn't take much sniffing. They've been very, very open about the fact that they're going to be very pass happy, and they've been very. I've gone down to a few practices. Runkeys look good.
He's the clear
I'm
number one, right, John?
Yes, I am worried about, and maybe they'll prove me wrong because they're young guys, but if anything happened to Runke, I would be more worried about the offense. But I think he's taken some strides, and I was not a fan of how they ran their offense the last few years, and I was very open about that fact.
Sure.
That I was not a fan with the play calling and everything that went into it. And I haven't seen McMenamin personally call a full game, but I like the ideas he's putting out there. And honestly, I talked to you about what you saw from him at Wayne State, and I'm impressed with what he's produced at different places with UCM, Wayne State, and Tulane. So yeah, I'm not expecting UCM numbers out of this offense, clearly, but I'm expecting it to take a step forward just in terms of design and the fact that they returned basically a whole lot of people on that side of the ball. And I just think the defense is still going to be very good. I think it'll be them and Hayes for the best defense in the MIAA again, like it has been in recent years. Pitt's been up there as well. I think it's those three, but I think I would take Northwest and Hayes' defense as the top two in the league this year.
Got Rich Wright on line 3 right now for
we'll see what players you end up with, Coach.
Well, let's go ahead. Moving right along. John's gotten through 4 of his teams up until this point. Let's move on over to his 5th pick. And speaking of Rich Wright, Central Missouri, the Mules and Coach Lambo and company. You don't have Central Mo ahead of Northwest. Now they went 9-3 a year ago. Now I realize we talked about a significant loss at quarterback. Very interesting stats for a 9-3 team. 39 points per game scored and almost 34 allowed.
Yeah.
A lot of shootout type wins. So we kind of talked about that last year. Now, how do you see this Central Mo team? Is this one that has had enough, turnover with things offensively that you kind of go, okay, what exactly are they going to look like? And, how's Coach Lambo going to do all this?
Well, we talked about when we talked Pitt that the leading returning passer had 8 yards. They didn't even bother to put passing stats on here because, they don't have anybody who's thrown a pass. That would be Zach Zabrowski. So that is tough. They're replacing a lot. You can't really get around it. I know they have receiver back with Jack Pospisil, who was really good and is a very good slot receiver. They have a lot of running backs sneakily. If you look at it, LaAngelo Bell is back. They got Tank Young from Northwest to transfer down there. They got a guy from Wayne State. You'll be able to provide his name.
Latravius Boyd.
There you go.
He was maybe the fastest player in the Northern Sun.
So they have sneakily a lot of running back talent, which hasn't exactly been what they've been known for recently. So that's interesting. Just a lot of juice there, I think, is the thing, though, and some guys they can use in different ways. So they've got some guys back on offense, but they don't have Zabrowski, obviously.
Right.
And we'll see. This team hasn't been that good other than the Zabrowski years. And I know Lambo only had 1 year, and I trust Lambo to run an offense and know what he's doing.
Right.
But at the same time, you kind of got to prove it. We've seen other schools that have lost a guy like that and haven't been able to. So they've been dipping deep into the transfer portal. They are probably the team, and it makes sense since I have them 5th, that is the greatest variance in the league. I could see them winning it. I could see them being 6th or 7th in the league. It's just kind of what happens with those transfer guys and what happens with the defense. Giving up 33.7 a game last year. You add Rich Wright. He probably would vomit if he looked at that 2024 defensive team stats column. And I don't think a Rich Wright defense is going to give up 33 points a game, but how low can it get, and can it cancel out what you're losing offensive scoring with Zabrowski? I just don't know the answer to that, and that's why I kind of threw them in the middle of the league here. And I agree, ranking 4 through 6 could go in any order almost. But
when I talked with Coach Lambo a few weeks back, he and I chatted. Well, and he said that that Rich, in assessing their defense and their personnel, that things were better than Rich was expecting. So he's got some players returned from injury from a year previous. I mean, they got real dinged up right away last year, and we're kind of chasing that for much of the season. And that Rich felt like they could do some real positive things. I'm curious though, John, at quarterback. I think that's what a lot of our audience might want to know. We've got a transfer potentially coming in from Missouri State.
He was at Missouri State, then he was at school in Utah, I believe, and now he's coming here.
Yeah, that's Jordan. How do we say his last name? Patchot?
Yeah, something like that. I don't have it in front of me.
And now he started a lot of games, not a lot, but he started games as a freshman and was very productive at Missouri State. And then they also have Donovan Amolo, who took a whole lot of practice snaps last year. He's a lefty quarterback, a younger player who's got some dual threat ability. And Coach Lambo had mentioned, he took a ton of our practice snaps last year with the ones because
a ton meaning all.
Yeah, because their quarterback, who was the Harlan Hill Award winner, was dealing with a shoulder and wasn't doing a whole lot of throwing until game day. So
I wasn't sure how common knowledge that is, and then I went down and talked to the radio guy at Media Day. He said, "Yep, that's common knowledge. Zabrowski didn't practice last year."
That's wild.
Yeah. Which makes that even more impressive. But you're right, that is an advantage with him back, even though, as it says on there, didn't throw a ball during a game, but has that practice reps. Like I said, I could see UCM being really good. There are a few offensive specialized coaches I'd rather have than Josh Lamberson, and there are very few defensive specialist coaches I'd rather have than Rich Wright. It's just the transfer portal makes them so hard to figure out because they lean into it so much, and I'd be lying if I said I knew. Some of them I do know because they're big enough names, but I'm sure some of these guys that are going to become household names by the end of the year, we just don't know at this point.
Well, I'd be curious to see how Coach Lambo uses some of those wideouts. And, like Latrevious Boyd is, frankly, I think, a better pass catcher out of the backfield than he is as a running back. I think that he's that kind of weapon, and he causes a horrible matchup issue. And I'll be real interested to see how they want to use him that way. Because, boy, he had some long touchdowns in the Northern Sun against some very good football teams.
They've got pass catchers like we were talking a second ago. Tank Young, Northwest did not have a good rushing offense. He made second team all MIAA all purpose back on the strength of his pass catching. Right. So they have some guys who could do different things out of the backfield.
Well, we're halfway home with John's.
We're getting there.
Top 10. Let's take a look at your next selection. Your next selection, Emporia State, the Hornets. So you had them kind of in, if we're going to call these little groupings, 1 through 3, then kind of that 4 through 6, you had them at kind of the back end of that grouping. Why would you say that? And kind of what do you see as kind of the upside with them as well, considering they're still right in the middle of the pack?
I hate to be a broken record with this, but look at the returners. Not a quarterback back, and the running back has 131 yards. So you don't return, and you lost the best receiver, either the first or the second best receiver in the country, in my opinion, from last year.
Tyler Common, right?
Tyler Common. Yeah. And Trendon Collins is really good. Life changes a little bit when you don't have Tyler Common opposite you. So
Totally.
I'm intrigued to see what they do at quarterback because they do not have the NIL and the transfer big shots that UCM has. They brought in some guys, but I think it's going to be returner Ben Harris at quarterback. Coach Higgins said more or less that at media day. He said if we had a game tomorrow, he'd be the guy. So I think it's going to be him, but you just lost so much from that offense. And Collins is a really good player, returned some on the offensive line, really good safety back. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot back. The defense gave up 27.5 points a game last year. So I'm not completely sold that the defense is going to carry them. And there's just a lot of question marks on offense. Higgins, I mean, he had some of the most honest media day quotes that you're going to have with him saying it was going to be a challenging year. Like, you don't hear coaches say that at media day. And I don't think he meant it as a negative either. I just think he meant they're going to have some challenges getting guys on the same page. A lot of guys who haven't played together are going to play together. And it's going to be a challenge, but he said it was a challenge he enjoys. And we'll see. I trust Garrett Higgins to get that offense going. I just don't know how much I trust the defense to take major strides forward. And he just simply doesn't have as much talent offensively as he's had in the years past. So I think there's a ceiling to even what Garrett Higgins can do with that offense. So that's why I'm a little concerned about Emporia going into this year.
Yeah, there's a lot of lost offensive production. Okay. And they're not the only one with that, but they're such a team that is their success is all about their firepower. And I think that they've got a lot to replace there. And coaches, he's gotten used to having to do that. Let's not kid ourselves. But,
yeah.
So I'm very curious to see how they end up doing there. Now, they have a very interesting start to their schedule as well. Now, they host Minot State. Now, we'll talk more about this, but I want to plant a seed with MIAA folks. Minot State was a 5-6 team in the Northern Sun last year, and they run basically like the Harding offense. They run the flexbone offense. And I bet Emporia's had some interesting time leading up. I don't think that they're just starting to prepare for that during game. I'll put it that way. So that's one of the more colorful games, I think, in week one. It's not the most high profile or anything.
No.
But and then they go to they go to Angelo State week 2.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting mix of games right there, right at the jump.
Again, the Lone Star favorites go to Hayes, and they don't go to Hayes, but they have Emporia and they have Hayes. So that's we'll learn a lot about Angelo State early on too.
And kudos to Angelo State. They're ambitiously, once again, that they've scheduled the MIAA. People aren't necessarily getting in line to do that, if we're going to be real frank. Now we haven't had a chance to go ahead and show any of our comments from folks in our audience.
I don't have it pulled up either, so you better surprise me.
I do. Somebody that you know in the comments, Matt Daniel.
He made an appearance earlier on the show in the intro.
Exactly. We can't get rid of him now. And I agree that the non-conference here is really enjoyable. And and if I take a look at week 0, and we'll talk more about this as the next week or two, move forward. But I think the MIAA's matchups may be the driver for us really having some of the best matchups that we've seen in week 0 period. I mean, it's been great.
I ranked them in a column I did a couple weeks ago. Again, subscribe to the paper. But
nice.
I ranked
that was smooth. I like that.
I ranked the non-conference schedules, and I could not believe the teams I had like 8th and 9th, because I'm like, they're playing good teams. I think I had Nebraska Kearney maybe last, and they're playing. And I put in it, I respect the schedule because they're playing 2 in-state games and a solid team in Wayne State, and then Chadron State, two teams from big conferences. But it's like all these other teams are playing top 25 teams every week. It's fun in the non-con.
No doubt. Let's move to your 7th ranked team. And I haven't even missed a slide yet, John. Are you surprised?
You're on your game today.
I'm producer, I'm host, I'm talent. Well, maybe more the host part, but your next squad, Nebraska Kearney, the Lopers. I got a chance to see them in the spring. They came on up in my neck of the woods and scrimmage with Sioux Falls, and I got a chance to see running back Isaiah Harris up close. He's one of the better running backs at D2 that not a lot of people know about. He has got more moves than a jar of worms. He can move. But let's go ahead and what are your thoughts about Kearney coming into this year? And we'll talk about their schedule here in a moment, but looks like they have a little bit of a quarterback battle maybe, and some things like that brewing upcoming.
I think the vibes from Media Day, and I do these rankings before Media Day. Obviously, we put the poll out before.
Yep.
The vibes from Media Day were very positive about the quarterback situation. And last year made me trust Coach Held quite a bit with all that because they were pretty much unanimously picked last in the MIAA last year. I had them there. Right. Pretty much everybody had them last, and they came out and 5-6 isn't nobody's going to be writing a book about that team, but they were super competitive in even those losses, and they pulled some upsets, and they were a very good football team. And I've got some. I think they're a team kind of. You just talked about Minot, kind of the arrow pointing up. I think Kearney's got a little bit of that in the MIAA right now, where the arrow's pointing up for this program. And Isaiah Harris, he's a University of Nebraska Cornhusker transfer. And he played really well last year, 825 yards, as it says there. And it felt he was something they could rely upon every week. And they didn't get great quarterback play last year from Reagan Jones. He's a guy MIAA fans were familiar with, losing his job at Missouri Western and then ending up at Nebraska Kearney. So I think it's a little bit different than when UCM's replacing Zach Zabrowski. I think they can find quarterback play there. And with Harris and the strides forward the defense made last year, I just like the group that this team brings back. And you look at the key returners, there's 4 offensive linemen there. They have a lot back.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that's I think that when you said they're kind of one of those teams with the arrow pointing up, I agree. I think they're at the point where you wouldn't be very surprised if they sniped one of those teams that we have kind of directly in front of them.
I could see it. They did it last year. They beat Northwest last year, and that's when everybody's alarm bells went up about Northwest. But also that's when Kearney announced, hey, we're a lot better than you all think we are. So
yeah, absolutely.
I will say they lose one of the best defensive players in the league with Q Felton.
Are you going to feel bad that you can't talk about him anymore?
I do. Okay. But he led that defensive line. That'll hurt to lose him, but they returned a ton around him.
Agree. Well, we're moving right along. We're moving into your 8th spot out of the 10. And I don't think these folks are going to be thrilled about. You're an alum, are you not? You got to help us understand this one.
I mean, I'm in the same spot where the rest of the media is. They finished 8th last year. They were 2-7 in the MIAA. I'm coming out of Media Day. I think I'm higher maybe than I was on Missouri Western. But they've got that question at quarterback. We didn't get any more answers at Media Day. He had talked about all 3 of them competing throughout camp. I liked what I saw from Brandon Burwald last year.
Vouch.
And but he does not have the job going in for sure. He might end up with it, but I liked what he did last year. So if he gets the job, I like the offense more. They return basically nothing at receiver. Their leading receiver had 15 catches last year.
Right.
And Brandon Hall, man, I hyped him up all last year as the best running back in the MIAA, and he looked like it through 4 games.
Right.
Through 4 games, he had 557 yards rushing, and then he got hurt again. And
Right.
that's been a familiar thing for Brandon Hall. If Brandon Hall can stay healthy, this team can be battling for the top half of the league. It's painful to say, but I just can't trust that to happen, and I can't trust the offense outside of Brandon Hall. So that's my concern there. I think the defense will be solid. There's an elite 100 guy on this defense with Desmond Green. He is a heck of a football player, but the rest of the offense, as seems to be the case with a lot of these MIAA teams, the offense concerns me.
I'd like to see Brandon Burwell get another chance because I thought, the last 5 games of the season, he averaged about 250 through the air, another 50 with his legs per contest. And, I watched them play Central Oak, and they were battling with him. He took a big shot in that game on the sideline too, big hit. But I think if you could have him making plays with his feet along with Brandon Hall, their running back, if he's healthy, boy, I tell you, I think that they're a better team than they're getting credit for.
Exactly.
So Coach Fenwick, just for what it's worth, the host of this show would have them as high as 6th in my rankings if I were doing them. So that a little bit of a every once in a while, I'm going to sprinkle in something like that.
Coach Higgins, take note.
Well, and I have Coach Higgins a spot lower. I have them at 7, and I have Carney at 8. And I think though that's all that is within a game, one way or the other, between those squads. I have Emporia, I have a concern with so much production loss, kind of like you did. And I think the top 5 in the conference is so hard to break through in that right now, the way it is. So
that's where I kind of am too. It's boring to put a tier break as the halfway point of the conference, but I feel like there kind of is one there. We'll see as we go.
Well, we'll get proved wrong now that we've said that. So
that's why I'd point out about Brandon Burwald too. Is he put up the best production that any of their quarterbacks did, and he's the only one that never had Brandon Hall lining up with him when he was putting up that production.
Good point.
That's why I'd like to see those two, as you said, paired together. We'll see what we get. And I mean, Coach Fenwick knows his team better than we do. So I'm sure he's got a plan there.
Well, I'm going to get a chance to see Coach Fenwick in week 0. They play that Saturday at Augustana, which I'm 10 minutes door to door from. So I will be watching that game. It says to be announced. That should be a day game because Augustana doesn't have lights. So I'm going to assume like a 1:00 start, unless I, were to see otherwise. But they're almost always a 1:00 start there. So let's move on to your next squad here. We're getting towards the end of the line. We've got your 9th ranked squad, which is the Washburn Ichabods. It's a matter of, did you have them in the last spot or Missouri Southern, obviously by process of elimination. Tell us your thoughts about Washburn coming into this year. Obviously, new head coach.
I liked what I saw from Keller Hurla, their quarterback last year. One of these rare teams in the bottom half here that returns a quarterback. He didn't take all the snaps last year by any means, but he took quite a few of them. First-year head coach was Zach Watkins, one of only 2 first-year head coaches in the conference. He was their defensive coordinator. He's a heck of a football player there, all-time leading tackler at Washburn. And they return a lot on defense. LJ Minner is a linebacker who is very underrated. Could be a first team all MIAA guy this year type of kid. They've got a lot back on that side of the ball. Offensively, they lose a really good receiver in Richardson, who had a great freshman year, ended up transferring. But I like what they have back. It's hard to move up in the standings, and kind of this 8, 9, 10.
Right.
I've really kind of left the order of finish of last year in there because all these teams have some question marks, and like every other team, Washburn's is offensively. Are they going to be able to put up enough points to let their defense do some things? I mean, 29.7 points a game is not great last year defensively, but I think they can make some significant strides this year. And they played a tough schedule last year as well with the MIAA slate, and then Mines in there and some good teams. So
yeah,
I could see them being better, but they're picked 9th for a reason, and I didn't really have much thought of putting them any higher than 9th in my preseason poll. So this is where they settle in.
Yeah. So that's going to bring us kind of towards the end of your selections here, John. Let's go ahead and kind of pull up Missouri Southern. Quarterback is going to be a question for a lot of people. Was it Luke Sampson a year ago, and he's not there any longer? Correct. So, was there any indication at media day, first off, where they're going in that direction, or do we have a competition? And where do they go after the season they had, a year ago at 2-9?
My guy Atiba Bradley was one of the quotes of media day. Somebody asked him about the quarterback situation, and he said, or he gave the typical coach's answer about not wanting to name one right away. And then the host actually came back and said, man, it seems like a lot of people don't know who their quarterback's going to be in this league. And I think he meant it as a real question, but Atiba kind of laughed and said, well, we've got a lot of good poker players in this league, and I'm going to keep my cards close to my chest as well. So he wasn't wanting to name anybody right away. They, like everybody, have some transfers in at quarterback, have some different guys, some young guys in there. So it'll be interesting to see who emerges from that. I will say they have 3 running backs that have all been productive at different points in their career. Their 2 leading rushers from last year, and then they get Nathan Glades back, who was an all-MIAA performer way back his freshman year. And similar to Brandon Hall, he has just gotten bit by the injury bug every single year. And he's a very talented kid, hometown kid from Joplin right there, and just can't stay on the field, unfortunately. They had him at media day, though, so he's healthy now, and hopefully for his sake and Missouri Southern's, if they can get him healthy, maybe they can outperform this mark a little bit. But I have them 10th right now. I will say I have them 2-0 in the non-conference, not to spoil next week's picks, but I think they pick up wins over Midwestern State and Southwest Baptist. So
you'd certainly like to think those are winnable games.
I do not think this is a bad football team. I just think they had the misfortune of Lincoln and Northeastern State leaving the conference at the wrong time when they were starting to get some momentum. And then you find yourself right back in the cellar, and it's hard to climb out of that cellar.
Right. Well, so everyone who's had a chance to kind of wade us through here and see what John's, 10 look like, here's essentially what we've got right now is John's got Central Oklahoma, got Fort Hays, got Pitt State. Then we've got Northwest Missouri. We've got Central Missouri. For what it's worth, I have UCM as high as 3 on mine.
You went and called up Lambeau and chatted him up for about an hour the other day.
Either that or maybe I just fell for it. I mean, he convinced me, but I also have Mo West. I have Mo West a little bit higher than you do. I don't have Northwest Missouri quite as high. I've got them at 5. I personally had UCO, I had Pitt, I had UCM, I had Hayes, and I had Northwest. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Hayes was higher. Part of me would be a little surprised if Northwest was.
Yeah, I mean, that top five's hard to break into. UCM, I'm lower on them than, like you said, you are. But as I said when we went through it, I would not be surprised if that team outperforms because I respect that coaching staff a whole ton.
Right.
I struggle with the transfer portal, and it's hard to predict how some of these things click.
Absolutely. Well, John, as we're going to go ahead and kind of wrap up, some of our graphics here for a moment. We do have a few people in the comments who've gone ahead and put in an item or two.
Yeah, let's do it.
John, are you ready to go ahead and tease it all a little bit of what your thoughts are on this? And for all our fans clamoring to know, Johnny, you making the trip in about, what is that, 10 days?
I am making the trip. The MIAA Weekly crew is going to be at the same place at the same time. That's going to be exciting. Yeah, if you paused enough on the sports pages, you could see our very Northwest Missouri-based pick'em crew was very high on Northwest beating Mankato. Hopefully that doesn't get back to the Mankato staff because that's a lot of bulletin board material for the currently number 4 ranked team in the country. I don't know if all of our people are that in tune to what's happening there in Mankato, but that's a darn good football team. I did pick Northwest in that game. We'll see how that goes. If I was putting money on it, maybe I wouldn't. But I'm just very intrigued by what Northwest has this year because it's the opposite of the UCM situation. It's the same players with a different coaching staff. It's similar to the UCM defense, but I'm curious to see how that clicks. So it would be a massive, shocking upset for Northwest to beat Mankato in Mankato. But I'm not ruling out a competitive, more interesting than the outside public would think football game. But yeah, I don't know if I'd bet the house on that game though.
Well, John, I will be there to kind of show you the sideline gig there. It's
You will.
It is very tight when you go walking from one end to the other. It might include you walking through like the offensive huddle of a team. So I'm just warning you now. So you and I are two bigger bodies going through there. I'll put it that way.
We are. I've been to Mankato once before, playoff game with Missouri Western back in the day. That
was the helmet throwing game, yes.
Oh, Ben Peaster. Ben is an interesting character. We'll have more stories some other time on that. But
some other time it will be. Well,
it will be.
Well, I want to thank everyone who's joined us for MIAA Weekly. John and I will be here, from now until probably early to mid-December every Monday evening. So if you like this kind of thing, then this is that kind of thing that you like. So we will see you guys next week around this same time. We'll pick all those games. And once again, thank you very much for tuning in.